What's good out there, Liquid Trucking? Welcome into episode 35 of the Liquid Trucking Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Marcus, and thank you so much for being here today. We've got a great episode today that it really kind of centers around families, okay? We're talking about school's out. I know you're trying to beat the heat. It's the dog days of summer. And I want to know what you and your families are up to. How are you guys beating this heat? Are you a camping family? Do you like to get out there in the 90-degree plus heat with the 80% humidity and just sweat it out? Or are you like me and staying away from that type of activity and finding the nearest air conditioner? I know there's a lot of different things to do this time of year, so I actually have used the text system there that your management team will send you mass text messages from. I sent out a text message a little while ago asking you how you're beating the heat, and I got a bunch of great responses from drivers. So we're going to get into that. I will read those a little bit later in the episode. Before we get to anything from this episode, though, we do have a little bit of homework that we need to take care of here because, as you all know, the Employee Jamboree is coming up. The Liquid Trucking Employee Jamboree. I believe it is the second annual, if I'm not mistaken. So really cool stuff there. It will be September 21st from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the admin building at the Plattsmouth Terminal. Lots of fun stuff planned. There's going to be food, all sorts of activities. Families are welcome. Look, you guys remember the Employee Jamboree last time we had one. I don't need to talk to you about this. I know that some of the guys that are driving and have been on this podcast multiple times, I believe Matt Cleach and Polar Bear, those guys are going to be hopefully hooking you up with some grub out there at the Employee Jamboree. So mark your calendars now. Get it on there in advance so that you can take part. Again, September 21st from 2 to 6 p.m., It's the second annual Liquid Trucking Employee Jamboree. That's the first part of the homework. The second part of the homework is actually an assignment I have for you. If you'll remember back, man, it's been quite a while. Let me drive back here in my content calendar and try to find the last time that we did a driver feedback episode. I think it was somewhere in the 20s, maybe. Something like that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Driver feedback. That's what we're going on. We've done driver backstories before, but this is an opportunity, and a really cool one at that, for you to come with feedback. And it can be on anything. If you want to give me feedback on the podcast, that's great. I'd love to see and listen to your ideas and hear how we can make this better. Something that you drivers will get more out of, enjoy more while you're listening to it. But if you have feedback for the company, more importantly, that's something that we really want to get into too on this episode. And the best way I can describe it is we're going to record your guys' feedback. I'm going to have conversations with as many drivers as I can fit into this episode. And you'll get a text message from me here soon saying, hey, if you've got feedback for the company, feedback for the podcast, feedback in general, we want to hear from you here on the podcast because we're going to take those interviews before we complete the episode. We're going to send them over to management so that they can listen to your feedback. If there's anything you have for them that they can listen to, they can assess, and they can come back in the very same episode and address any of those concerns for you. So a very cool concept here. It's a way to get kind of instant feedback on your feedback. Hey, I've got an issue. I'm wondering what the company's doing about it. Okay, I'm going to take that issue and put it right in the powers that be's lap, and they're going to come back on the podcast, and they're going to answer for it. So really cool idea. Very excited that management and everybody is on board with it. So be sure to look out for a text message coming out saying, hey, we're looking for some drivers to come on our driver feedback episode. It'll be a great opportunity for you to ask questions and get them answered right here on the podcast. So really looking forward to that. Let's get back into talking about why we're here. It's, as I said, the dog days of summer. I asked you guys how you were beating the heat. I got, like I said, a ton of good comments. We'll get to that in a little bit. But first, I wanted to bring you a list of ways that I came up with to beat the heat this year. A little disclaimer before we jump into these. This entire list was written tongue-in-cheek, okay? As much as I would love to hear the stories about you guys actually trying some of these, I really do hesitate to tell you to go out and do it. I don't want anybody to get in trouble. I would hate if I caused anybody to lose their job because I'm being silly. So take this all with a grain of salt, but these are Marcus's ways to beat the heat in the dog days of summer. Coming in at number 1 here, convert your truck cab into an ice-cold sanctuary by filling it with bags of ice and running the AC at full blast. Now, if you get pulled over, cops might have some questions for you. You can just tell them, hey, I'm trying to catch up with the load of hot sailboat fuel up there ahead, probably 10 miles. It's overheating, and I'm coming to cool it down. I don't think that will probably work. But again, tongue-in-cheek. How about this one? This actually sounds like something maybe we could do. I don't know, maybe employee jamboree. Hey, I'm just throwing ideas out there. Set up a giant slip and slide down the main path between the terminal and the shop. Every time you need to get from one point to the other, just take a running leap and slide your way onto coolness. I mean, who doesn't love a slip and slide, right? Especially if you ever been on one that they've greased up with a little Dawn dish soap. That's a long walk from the terminal to the shop, especially the new terminal. But if there's any type of pitch there, man, a bottle of Dawn dish soap and a few gallons of water, maybe some strips of garbage bag type film, you get there and you get there quick. But do be careful. Coolness, this is in terms of temperature, of course, if you're going to slide to coolness, because we all know you're probably not going to look that cool running up to a slip and slide as an adult. Everybody knows the knees aren't working like they used to. How about this one? I call this one the dumpster dive delight. You can find an old, unused dumpster and fill it with water and ice, and voila, you've got yourself a luxurious dumpster dive pool. Now, where I'm from, we actually call this the Portland City Municipal Pool, but you can come up with your own fun name for it, all right? I do recommend a bottle of Dawn dish soap for that one as well. How about Mirage Madness? We don't want to talk about goofy. This one's goofy. Claim you saw a mirage of an ice-cold oasis in the distance and heroically volunteer to, quote, check it out for safety reasons. Always remember, safety first. Then you can spend the afternoon in the nearest air-conditioned mall. That's a great idea. You go to a mall, you can return later, you'll have a smoothie and a new pair of kicks, and you can tell tales about battling desert conditions at an oasis that mysteriously disappeared as soon as you got close. And, you know, if you're going to check out the new Skechers, hey, I stopped by a mall on the way back. There's a built-in excuse there. You'll be fine. Ooh, this one I really like. Little behind-the-scenes information here. You know, Jason did tell me he's taking a trip here pretty soon, or he's going to be off work for a little bit. I'm not sure where he's going, but you could always sneak in an air-conditioned nap in his office when he's not there. Who knows if he locks it? But I'm sure there's plenty of room on the floor in there to take a nice, cool nap. So think about that. If you haven't seen old Jason around the terminal for a few days, you might be able to squeeze in a 30-minute nap in his office. And no, I did not ask him permission before putting that on there. So also one of those that you'll want to approach at your own risk or just not approach. This one, it could work. It seems like it would work in theory. Freeze your work clothes in the freezer overnight. Then you can slip into them in the morning and enjoy that icy chill as they start to thaw. And little bonus here, it's like instant air conditioning if you start sweating. And we'll give you bonus points for any lunch meat that sticks to your shirt for more than an hour when you pull it out of the freezer. So there's that. You know, who doesn't like a snack on the run, right? You just look over, there's a cold cut attached to your right sleeve. Perfect, man. That thing's cold too. Creative fan usage is always a good way to stay cool during the dog days of summer. You could strap like a battery-powered fan to your hard hat or your safety equipment while you're out there. Just make sure it doesn't obstruct your vision or your ability to be safe. This is actually something that could work. Battery-powered fan on the hard hat or on the safety equipment might make you stay cool on those long, hot unloads, and you definitely won't look like an astronaut that someone bought off the TikTok shop. I promise. Take my word for this one. Shade shenanigans. This is a fun one, too. You just follow the shade like it's your new religion. You build temporary structures. You'll find large pieces of equipment to stand behind when you can. Obviously, maintaining line of sight on your plumbing. We've got to make sure and do safe unloads here, but even if you've got a guy that stands like 6'8", I know there's some big dudes out there working for Liquid. You could stand, I'm 5'9". If I got a 6'8" friend, I know that he doesn't know this. I do have a 6'8" friend. His name is Drew. He's one of the nicest people I've ever met. But to me, he's a giant. And he doesn't understand that I will always be strategically finding a way to put him between the sun and I. So just a little tip there. If you've got a friend that's up there with the trees, hey, use him as a tree. Get a little bit of free shade. It's the dog days of summer. It's serious out there. This next one is it's something I've done. Let's just put it that way. Skip the sandwiches for lunch and chow down on a pint of your favorite ice cream. I recommend Tillamook. Really any flavor. If you're kind of a plain guy, their French vanilla is to die for. Their chocolate chip cookie dough is the best in the land. But they also have a campfire peanut butter cup s'mores. It's marshmallow ice cream with a ribbon of chocolate and then mini peanut butter cups in it. I digress. All right, eating some ice cream for lunch kind of flies in the face of every health tip we've ever given you on this podcast. But, and I do really put the emphasis on but here, it will cool you down. It'll also give you a brain freeze of epic proportions. So, again, approach with caution. And finally, carry a squirt bottle filled with ice water that you can mist yourself with. This is actually practical. This is the one. I left this one for last because it's not really tongue-in-cheek. You could actually have a little squirt bottle, just put some ice cubes in it every now and then, nice cool mist on the back of the neck, and hey, it also doubles as a personal space security device because everybody knows, like, look, give me my bubble here. It's 80 degrees. It's 80% humidity. Every inch of my body is sweating. So this is your personal security device because if you get one of those aluminum spray bottles, you can throw it at anybody that gets too close to you when it's this hot outside. Again, drivers, I want to remind you that Marcus's ways to beat the heat in the dog days of summer was written with tongue planted firmly in cheek. These are just for entertainment purposes only. Please remember, safety first. Don't try any of my goofball ideas. Don't lose your job over it. But you could definitely think about that creative fan use. You know, a fan clipped to the back of your hard hat, blowing a nice breeze right down your back and down the back of your pants. Sounds pretty nice on a day like today. Let me know if it works because I've got this hat that I wear every single day when I'm doing this podcast and my studio's upstairs, so it gets a little sweaty up here. If the fan on the hat thing works, I'm game, okay? And I don't care if the mic picks up the noise. You're just going to have to deal with it because I am hot. However, I did text some Liquid drivers, as I was saying, to see how they're beating the heat, and I was informed by more than one of them that my little Oregon boy butt does not know what real heat is, and it's true. We get a dry heat over here. We're very lucky. I did go to a wakeboard camp in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, when I was a kid in late August, so I have experienced it. I got swimmer's ear. Worst week of my life. Would not recommend. 3 out of 10 stars. But, I mean, it was a wakeboard camp. How can you really complain? I've done enough talking for this intro. You've heard how I'm going to be trying to beat the heat. Now, we're going to talk to you. I've got a Liquid driver making his first appearance on the podcast coming up right around the corner. And later on in the show, I'll get to all your responses of how you Liquid drivers are out there beating the heat right now in the dog days of summer. Let's get to the interview.
Welcome to the gold standard of podcasts for the gold standard of drivers. This is the Liquid Trucking Podcast with your host, Marcus Bridges.
My next guest here on the Liquid Trucking Podcast is making his first appearance on the podcast, and we're very glad to have him. He is Liquid driver John Lohan. John, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Hey, no problem. It's a pleasure.
Well, we really appreciate the time. And, I was talking to Jason Eisenman about this episode, and he told me something that I figured if somebody said this about me, I'd want to know. So I'm just going to go ahead and pass this on because it was a heck of a compliment. He said, John, right when he walked in the door, I could tell by the type of guy he was that I wanted to hire him right there on the spot. He is a great guy, and I'm really excited for you to get to talk to him. So Just wanted to let you know that that's kind of the perception that you've got coming from the front office there at Liquid Trucking. They think you're a real great employee, John, and we're happy to have you on, and I hope that kind of brightened your day a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely appreciate that. So.
Now, tell me your thoughts kind of on Liquid, because we're going to get into your background here. We'll talk about where you were before you got out to Nebraska, and then we'll get into talking about how you and the family are beating the summer heat. But I know that you've worked for some other trucking companies in the past. What is it that you like about Liquid Trucking that keeps you there?
Well, for sure, the people in the front office, Jason and all the guys that we work with, they're all good guys, and they definitely appreciate what they all do. And also, we do a different pay scale where we're at, so that's definitely a plus. And like back in the past, I did some flatbedding and tarping and all those things. So pulling a tanker sure beats all that. So
okay, so you like the tanker. So you were happy to give up the tarping and all that goes into flatbedding and learn the plumbing that goes along with tanking. Kind of sounds like you'd rather do the plumbing than the tarping.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, that's a whole different ball game. So it's definitely a lot better.
Did it provide a challenge for you, or are you one of those guys that's really good with your hands, really good with, working on your own house, plumbing and that type of thing? I see some of the things that you guys have to learn, make sure that you're safe when you're unloading and loading the tanks and everything, and it kind of makes my head spin. Was it pretty easy for you to pick up on, John?
Oh, it took a little bit of repetition, a little bit of mistakes I made, a little bit of things like that, but I definitely got it. So. But definitely is a challenge at first. So, learning all the different valves you need to open and close and all the pressure you have to deal with sometimes. So it's definitely a change, but I got a hang of it though eventually.
Sure. As most drivers do. And, last week on our podcast episode, we talked to Bo Hankey, and one of the things that he was saying, and along with Quincy Rich as well, was, hey man, you're going to mess up. It's going to help you in the long run if you go out and make the mistakes. So I'm glad that you were able to get that behind you and get on to enjoying your tanking career. Now, Jason told me one thing about you. This is really the only background about you that I have, but he told me that you moved out of the rat race of California over to Nebraska. And so you were in the land that nobody likes when it comes to trucking, out there in California. What was behind your decision to move out of that state? Did it have anything to do with how much red tape is wrapped around trucking there, or were there some different reasons you wanted to get out of California?
Oh, it wasn't the trucking so much. It was just the fact that California, for one, is definitely a higher cost of living, very expensive, rent, home ownership, all that stuff was definitely going to be out of the picture if me and my family didn't leave. As far as trucking goes, I think I did it back when we had paper logs. So that was a little bit, we usually used to get paid by the load. So I'd be throwing logbooks out the window and doing things that you're really not supposed to do in trucking. But that was the only way you could make any money because, like I said, their pay scale was definitely a lot different. And the cost of living versus the pay definitely didn't match as far as taking care of my family.
Okay. And how long have you been out in Nebraska now, John?
I've been out here going on a little over 10 years now. We actually did live out here a couple years before, and then we actually moved back to try, because part of my family's out there. So we moved back out there to try to make it one more time, and obviously it was a fail. So we wound up coming back this time, and we've been here about 10 years now.
And are you liking it now? I mean, does Nebraska feel like home?
Oh, definitely, yes. I love it. It's definitely a change from being out in California. Definitely the first time I came out here and started driving out here, you had all the farmers waving at you when you're driving down the road, and you're like, "Oh, what the heck's going on here?" So it took a little used to get the wave and the hay and all this, and the definitely different environment, but I do love it.
It's so funny. I come from a very small town. I grew up in a town population 2,000, and I would bring some of my friends during college back to my hometown to meet my family or hang out at the lake or whatever we used to do. And that was one thing that they always asked me. It's like, hey, am I doing something wrong? I'd say, well, why do you think that? It's like, because every time I get in a car and drive through this town, every single person waves at me, and I feel like they're trying to tell me something about what's going on. I said, nah, man, it's just how it is in rural counties. It's just more, a little bit more friendly out here. They don't see so many people that they start to become a headache. People are kind of something that's a welcome sight out in a place like Nebraska or a place like where I grew up.
Most definitely, yes.
I love that. I really do love that that little town feel. And, you know, we talk about on this podcast all the time, Liquid runs their company like one big family. So you kind of feel like you got a lot of family there in Nebraska, I'm sure. How many kids do you have, John?
I have 3 altogether. I have 2 girls and a son.
Okay. And how old are they?
My oldest is 24. And my second youngest is going to be 22, I believe, here soon. And my youngest is actually 17 now. He's going into his senior year at Norfolk High School. So definitely time's flying.
Yeah, I bet. Because when you moved out here, they were all kids still, and now they're growing up into adults, starting their own lives, and fleeing the nest, I'm sure. What types of things are you getting into with the family this summer to beat the heat? I know the weather's been kind of crazy out there, hot in Nebraska. And I know that actually one more piece of background that Jason gave me is that you got a camp trailer you like to put some miles on this time of year.
Yeah, we actually just purchased it about 2 months ago, just around our first camper. So we were very excited we were able to do that. So right now we're just kind of starting out. You know, we did some local stuff. Like this weekend, we're going up to Pierce, Nebraska and camping up there for a few days using the trailer. So we're kind of getting used to it. It's our first time owning one. So it's kind of a learning experience, but definitely going up there and hanging out in the trailer where it's cool and hanging out by the lake is definitely nice. So we've been doing a lot of local stuff right now because fortunately Nebraska has definitely a lot of parks, a lot of places to camp and do those kind of things.
Now, are you do you like to do some fishing, or are you a water sports guy, or are you one of those guys that, hey, man, when it's camping, I'm coming out here to do nothing, and I just want to sit and relax and enjoy nature? What do you like to get into while you're out there?
Yeah, usually I just like to sit and relax and enjoy nature. You know, we bring, board games, things like that, different things. So me and my son get to play outside and sit there and just enjoy the outdoors. And we bring our dogs. So, you know, we kind of just more do that than anything. So that's more my pleasure, just relaxing, getting away from driving and just enjoying the outdoors.
Sure, letting everything slow down a little bit. I always love when I'm camping, it feels like the days are longer, the minutes are longer. It's just, overall, the pace goes from 75 miles an hour down to about 25, which that's a real good place to live when you're thinking about the stress level, right?
Yes, definitely. Yes, definitely. But actually, for me, it seems like the time off goes by faster than the time at work. But I think that's pretty much usually how it is, I think. But
yeah,
you wait so long for time off or vacation, and then you're like there, and you're like, oh, now it's time to go back on the road again. So definitely a little challenging.
For sure, for sure. Now, I also know you've taken your kids on the road in the past. How long did they get to stay out with you? Is that something that they really enjoy doing? What's the situation with taking the kids out from time to time?
Well, they really enjoy it. They've been doing it since I've been driving now, 23 years altogether. So my kids were, of course, they were raised with me being a truck driver. So definitely they love when they get to go with me. They used to go when they're little for like a week or so at a time. Like I said, my son is only one really living at home now, so he went with me a couple weeks ago for about a week. So, but he still likes it. He still enjoys spending time with his dad, and definitely they get a chance to learn ins and out of trucking, and they definitely get to appreciate how hard Dad works for the family.
That's great, because it's unless you can experience that firsthand, it's a job that a lot of people don't have a good perception of how hard it actually is, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. I mean, my wife always jokes around, says, oh, you're on vacation when you're not at home. But in a way it is, because you're away from the family. But on the other hand, you're pretty much, you're under the wing of your people, your dispatchers, things like that. So it gets a little hectic as well. So that's kind of a catch-22, I think.
For sure. Do you think after the experience that your son's had in the truck, or either one of your daughters, that any of them will pursue a career in trucking?
They see it, they know it, but they really, to me, they're they're basically not wanting to do it because they know it's not something that, they always have goals to do other things. And like my son, he's actually going to be going in the Air Force after his senior year. So he's going to be doing some good things like that. So definitely into computers, intelligence, all those things young kids like to do now, but definitely he's got his own path. And my girls, they're kind of just filling things out and seeing how things are going. So
sure. I understand that completely. Watching my dad as a kid, he went from managing sawmills to running an insurance business. And when it came time for him to retire, he called my sister and I both and said, hey, the company's up for sale and you guys get first dibs on it. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I've seen what you go through. And I think that was part of it for me, is that, man, I know it's a successful company, but I've also watched it beat the hell out of him for certain times in his life. And sure enough, in talking to my sister just this week, I think she's got a new bald spot from a chunk of hair that she's pulled out because of it. So there is something to that. You get tempered in the fire a little bit, and maybe you come up with other plans. So for your son, the Air Force, that's really cool. Was that when he told you, hey, Dad, I want to head into the Air Force, I want to serve my country, was that something that was hard for you to accept? And I guess I'll ask you this question first and then let you get to that one. Are you a military vet?
It was very exciting. No, I'm not. My dad actually was. He was in the Marines, and my two brothers were in the Marines. They were actually both over during the first Persian Gulf in '91, I believe it is. But no, I never really ventured that way. I thought about it for a while, but it was kind of just didn't happen for me. But I do appreciate all who served.
Oh, absolutely. And having that lineage in the family there probably helped your son make his decision a little bit easier, didn't it?
Yeah, well, it really helped because they had, we had several recruiters calling and wanting him because I guess he took the military test they take in school, during those first, I think their junior year, I believe, that kind of tells them what career they're going to have. And he scored almost the top score. So he was very excited about that when they called and said, you got a choice of any job you want. Plus the fact that he has actually high functioning autism. So that's going to be a little bit of a challenge, but he's so smart. He's smarter than both me and my wife. So he definitely is excited for it.
That's awesome. Well, how cool to be going into your senior year in high school and knowing that you've already got it planned out. I remember at this point in time in my senior year of high school, just starting out, I had no idea what was going to happen the next year. I'd applied to some schools, but I didn't know whether I wanted to chase a girl up to Washington or whether I wanted to go as far away as I possibly could. I was all over the place. So good on him for having the wherewithal and the presence of mind to make that decision early. That'll make the senior year nice and relaxing for him. He doesn't have to stress about that stuff.
Exactly. He gets to enjoy and do his thing and just get through it. He's got a future ahead. So we're very proud.
So are Dad and Mom anxiously looking forward to having the house to themselves, or is this something that you're a little bit apprehensive about, being it'll be the first time you've had an empty nest in over 20 years?
Oh yeah, we're definitely it's going to be definitely a difference, especially with the youngest going away. That'll be hard. But for some reason, we can't always get rid of our kids because, like I said, my daughter's probably going to be moving back with us for a little while. So, so we're never naturally going to be empty nesters all the time. But me and my kids were all close knit, so it kind of one of those things. But we have some plans now with the camper and things like that to be able to spend some time together, which is sometimes definitely not something we get used to after having a family and me being gone a lot.
For sure.
But we are looking forward to it.
That's great. Well, it sounds like you got a great family there, John, and I'm glad to hear that you're getting to spend some time with them. What about your wife? Has she ever come out on the road with you?
She did for a short time here and there, but she's usually always busy. She has been busy with the kids over the year, and she owns her own house cleaning business, so she gets pretty busy. But I asked her to come out. There's always something going on, and that's something we're going to be looking forward to here when my son's in the Air Force and things. So she'll probably plan on coming with me and have a different chapter in our life. So
that's really cool. And when you have somebody along for the ride, this is something I've always wondered. How much do you work with your dispatcher to try to get a route where you might have a fun stop to make along the way for either your kids or your wife that might be riding along? Are you looking for viewpoints or, really cool routes that'll take you through just really cool geographic areas? Or do you just kind of take them along for the ride and show them exactly what it would be like for a day in the life of work with Dad?
For the majority of the time, I just take them along for the ride, kind of get whatever I get. Being from California, like I said, my family, my mom's still out there. So there's occasional ask dispatch to send me out to California and try to plan a visit out there or to see my mom or whatever. So, or see family. We did that a few times. So they're pretty open, pretty good about working with me and try to get loads if I ever want to do those kind of things. So, I remember when the kids were younger, my son, I know we went through South Dakota, I believe it's Murdo, and we went to that Pioneer Auto Museum, I believe it is.
Oh,
that
cool.
was very fun for him. We were able to stop, take a 30-minute break and do that. So that was very exciting. When he was young, it was something we got to do. And I think one time we went, took a 10-minute break and found a theater, did things like that. So we try to do something different, and I eat at my truck a lot. So when I have the kids, we definitely do a eat out day, or when we go in the evening, go to a restaurant when I have them to eat and take a break from the truck. So they definitely have fun.
Cool. So it breaks your day up a little bit. You do definitely take a few liberties in there and try to make it work for them as well, because the life of a trucker, you're as I already used the phrase once, you're tempered in the fire, man. You could go as long as you need to, and sometimes that doesn't always work for the ride-along buddies, right?
Yeah, exactly. Especially the girls, they got to stop, use the restroom or something, and we're always stopping, and it seems like, we're stopping again. So, but yeah, definitely. So definitely changes it, but we plan accordingly, but it is definitely worth it to have company.
Oh, I imagine so. I really do. That's great. So I'll ask you this, since you come from California, now you're out in the Midwest, you've made kind of two different regions of the United States your home over the years. Where's your favorite place to drive in the country, John?
Wow, that's a toss-up. I really like the Ozarks down near down in Arkansas.
Uh-huh.
There's the Ozark Lake area like that. That's very nice. It would be nice to ever vacation there, do something like that. That's one of my favorite spots. But going up Montana, out there in the mountains and stuff, that's still my favorite. So
yeah, big sky country, man. There's nothing like it.
Yeah, those places are usually my favorite. I try to hate if I cringe if I have to go into Los Angeles or somewhere where there's heavy traffic, but it is what it is. You got to do what you got to do. So definitely like Arkansas, the South, Alabama, a lot of those places down there are very pretty and definitely different culture, but Midwest still beats East or West Coast for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. I hear that. And I get that from a lot of drivers. And I would say the South is great so long as the Opti-Idle's working okay and the AC's kicked on, right? Because that humidity down in the South this time of year is something else. And being from where I'm from, up here in Oregon, and maybe even the same thing for you when you're from California, we don't get the humidity like they do down there. And I'll tell you, it just makes you sweat all the time. I don't understand how they can live down there like that.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely a change. I mean, even just coming to California, the heat is hot. And like I said, the more of a dry heat, and coming out here in Nebraska, the Midwest, the humidity, that took a while definitely to get used to. So,
yeah. Well, I guess the one nice thing about Nebraska, the Midwest, and also the South is this time of year, it doesn't tend to be burning quite like California will be, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I do love the fact that we have those thunderstorms that come in and the rain, it breaks it up and it rains for an hour and then it's sunny again. So that's something I really love.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you for sure. Well, John, I really want to thank you for your time here coming on the podcast for the first time. Really appreciate it. And I want to give you the same opportunity that I give to everyone else that comes on this podcast. And that is anything that you want to say to anybody that might be listening, whether it be fellow drivers, employees back at the liquid terminal, or if your family, your kids or your wife are going to be listening to this, you can say anything you want to anybody you want. The floor is yours. Take as long as you need.
Well, first I want to thank my company. Thank Liquid Trucking. They're very understanding. Dispatch and all those people we work with, they're all good. They all treat you like family, and they definitely take care of you. So I definitely appreciate all their hard work as well. And I also appreciate other drivers, all the sacrifices we all have to make away from our families, especially missing certain events occasionally, or not get to see a kid's band concert or a sports game. That takes a lot of sacrifice and adjustment. So I definitely appreciate all those other drivers with our company, and definitely all the other drivers that work out here on the road. And I also want to thank my family. They definitely take patience and a lot of sacrifice for me to be away from them, especially during the week, or if I stay out 2 weeks at a time. My wife had to step up a lot through the years, and definitely appreciate her and love her with all my heart. So definitely very grateful and thankful for my life right now and for what is going to happen in the future. So definitely just a thanks to all that's involved. And
well said there.
That's it. We'll cut that part off.
Well said there, John. It really is. You can hear it in your voice that you're not only your family, but your company's very important to you. And we just really appreciate the time coming on here to have a chat with us. Thank you so much. Be safe out there, and we'll get you back on the air sometime in the future, okay?
Okay, sounds great. I appreciate talking to you. You
Thanks.
Have a good one, too.
You too. Thanks, John. Bye-bye. Great stuff from John Lohan there. As we said, really appreciate his time coming on and breaking the ice. It's always cool when we get a driver on for the first time, and it's like they had fun. I can tell at the end of the episode they have fun. In fact, I'm not going to spoil it for you guys, but John gave me a fantastic idea for an episode off the air after we ended that interview, and I can't wait, man. So we're getting John back in here and maybe even having him on with a special guest. So look forward to that in the future. Liquid driver John Lohan, again, thank you so much for the time. And just, it's not always easy for people to come on here and just talk about family life. And that's exactly why we had John on. He did a great job, handled it well. I was really interested in the part where, coming from California, having a lot of family in California, being a guy that, is from there, he might not actually dislike California as much as a lot of truck drivers do. And that makes sense, man. He's got family back there. But you did hear him echo a lot of sentiments from a lot of other drivers like, man, I don't want to go to L.A. Like, everybody thinks California and they think L.A. It's a big state. There's a lot of cool areas outside of it. Now, it's all got red tape wrapped around it like a mummy at Halloween, but notwithstanding, it's a beautiful state, too. I know there's a lot of scenic areas to drive in California, so always good to get a California transplant living out here in Nebraska, being as good of a guy as John is. Again, thank you so much for that time. Now, before we get out of here today, I told you I sent out a text. I know you guys saw it because I got a lot of good responses, and I basically just wanted to know, what are you guys doing to beat the heat in the dog days of summer? And, this can be with your family, this can be just you. What happens in your life? How are you trying to stay cool out there? And I got some great responses from the drivers here. First one coming in from Tim Barron Spencer. He says, Dad, that being me, installed Mr. Cool mini splits and is doing his own electrical work. That's pretty cool. Mr. Cool mini splits. Now, I did a little bit of research on these just to find out exactly what they are, because I'd never actually heard of it before. But they're just little mini air conditioners is what I'm seeing. They're little tiny guys, and they're not cheap. I would definitely be doing the install on these as well for what you're paying for them. But man, these things look cool. You can control them from your phone, keep the air nice and cool. Check them out over at minisplits.com. Chill Mini Splits, if you want to know what Tim Barron Spencer is using. He also says on top of that, we have season passes to Adventureland and we spend time at Adventure Bay. Now, being a bit of a sucker for theme parks and water parks, I had to go research this as well. Dude, I did not know that Iowa had this massive megaplex type theme park. Adventureland has been open for more than 50 years, and Adventure Bay says from wild to mild, we have something for everyone. Just going to read you an excerpt, and I'm looking at this picture right now. It's this massive water park. Adventure Bay is a gigantic water park located within the grounds of Adventureland Resort, and no better place to cool off from the summer heat and have fun with your entire family. From thrilling water slides to Iowa's biggest wave pool and lazy river, multiple kiddie play areas, and more, Adventure Bay has it all. Kids and adults of all ages will find something to love and enjoy here. This is awesome. You can rent a cabana. You can have your own cabana, Vegas style, on the lazy river. Look, that is the one time that I'm okay with the blazing summer heat. I'm talking about that 110 degree dry desert heat, and that is when I'm down in America's playground, Las Vegas. And there is one place that I want to be during the day in Las Vegas, and it is not at the casino tables, even though I love to gamble. I will be found at the MGM pool complex in that lazy river. There is nothing better than just taking a few float laps around a lazy river with a tall, cool one in your hand, and then you jump out at the cabana, you chill out, you dry off, you heat up a little bit. Man, you feeling a little hot? Back into the lazy river. There's nothing better. If you've never been on a lazy river before, get down to Vegas, try it out at the MGM, or head over to Adventure Bay and hang out with Tim Barron Spencer and his family, because they're going to be there. I got a text from Mike Stanfield telling me what he does. He said he goes swimming at the in-laws and has water gun fights with his son. There's something about a good water gun fight, man. And may I add, all water gun fights should always have water balloon grenades, all right? It's just because I like getting sprayed with a water gun, but sometimes it'll be like just in one spot. Like, thanks, you wet down my armpit, but what about the rest of me? That's where the water balloon grenades come in. You've heard the term fall on the grenade. I'll fall on every water balloon grenade when it gets this hot outside. I love a good water fight. Nothing better. And there's always somebody that comes out that just magically found like 100 feet of hose, and they don't have to refill. They don't have to pump. They just own everybody with that cold hose water. That's my type of guy right there. Coming in from Liquid driver Austin McCracken. He says he's beating the heat with hot dogs and beer brats on the grill while we swim in our big pool. Fantastic, man. Having a pool is so underrated this time of year. How about Corey Lyles? He says he has a nice big pool. Again, fantastic. With a very large cooler stocked with nothing but ice cold water. Now, knowing Corey, he's been on the podcast a few times. I've had him on the phone, gotten to spend some time talking to him. I imagine that his cooler is stocked with a variety of water that we like to call barley water over here in Oregon, but I don't know. For sure, he said you will not find him camping in this weather. That sounds like me. I'm a tent guy. I don't have a camp trailer, so I can't do it. I just burn down. You'll find me in a melted puddle of vinyl. But also, Corey Lyles says pretty soon he's got a vacation to Aruba and the Dominican coming up. So good on you, Corey. Enjoy that time in the tropics. Nothing like being on a beach in weather like this. Let's go down to Tracy Zell. Grilling at the lake. That's simple. You know what? Find me a body of water. It does not have to be a pool. It doesn't have to be a lazy river. I grew up 6 miles from a lake that was formed by a glacier up in the mountains. And, it's 600-800 feet deep. It's 4.5 miles long. Nothing like jumping into like some 55-degree water on a day like today. It is so refreshing. And I really like it when it shocks your body so much that you have to kind of sit there and assess the decision that you've just made. Never enough. Grilling at the lake, I'm all about it, Tracy. How about Tony Brown? He enjoys camping in the hot weather. He actually, he responded to the text and said, look, I'm one of the weird ones. I'm good going camping in the hot weather, but he admitted that that's because he's cheating and he's got that air-conditioned camp trailer. And I understand wanting to brag about that. It's a really nice thing to have when the weather gets crazy hot. He is a lot like me, though. He said if you're camping in this type of weather, you need a body of water. So you'll find Tony Brown and his family at some of their favorite river and lake spots this time of year. Next up, we got driver Mitch Donaldson, who says, the family says it's great this time of year because I'm never home. And I knew we were going to get at least one response like that. I'm sure, though, Mitch, they're happy to have you home because, hey, somebody's got to set up and fill the pool so that the family can stay cool, right? Moving on here, our good buddy Polar Bear checked in with us. He actually took a different route here, and this is why I love Polar Bear, man. He's always thinking about everybody else. Polar Bear wanted to check in with some tips on staying cool. He mentioned the importance of hydration this time of year, which cannot be overstated in this heat. I went golfing the other day. It touched 100 degrees while I was out there. You guys, I drank my Hydro Flask down 3 separate times, all right? That's 96 ounces of water in this thing, and I did not have to pee once. What's that tell you? That I'm sweating, dog. I am absolutely leaking out here, and you got to stay up on the water. And another thing that Polar Bear offered in his comment was that not only the water, but electrolytes are very important. You know, sweat, we've all had it drip in our mouths and in our eyes. It's salty, and that's what you need to replenish when you're pumping out a lot of sweat. You got to get some salt in you. And electrolytes are great. Grab a bottle of Gatorade or something like that. Or they make a lot of little squirt juices that you can put in your water. They give them a nice flavor. A lot of them are sugar-free, but they will have electrolytes in them that will replenish everything that you've lost in this heat. You need them, so make sure you've got those bad boys replenished. Electrolytes and water. Thank you to Polar Bear for the tips there. Going down to check in with William Stanfield. He says, my family stays cool by going swimming, relaxing indoors in the AC, and watching movies. Another underrated way to beat the heat is just to stay the hell out of it. It's very enticing when you see a beautiful bluebird day until you step outside and realize, my God, it's 35 degrees hotter outside than it is in my house, and I haven't seen Top Gun Maverick 5 times yet. So there you go. I mean, great advice there. You got the pool, but even the pool can get a little hot on these days. Go in and enjoy a nice movie in the AC. I'm all about it. We got 2 more here. Again, if you're just tuning in and wondering what the hell I'm talking about, I'm mentioning driver names, and these are their responses to the question, how are you beating the heat with your family in these dog days of summer? Matt Cleach checked in, and he said he's camping in his garage next to a fridge full of barley water and his dogs. Can't blame him there. Hopefully, you've got at least a fan in the garage, or maybe it's well insulated so you can at least stay a little bit cool out there. But the fridge full of beer always helps. And of course, he's got his dogs there with him because as I conversated with Matt a little bit further past this comment, one thing I figured out is that, you know, people can ruin just about anything. And what's one thing people, just unknown random people showing up when you don't want them, are great at ruining? That's a day in the garage with the dogs. That's a solemn place. That's a place where you just want to go and be by yourself, get some good thinking in. I totally get it, Matt. Enjoy the time with your dogs in the garage there with your cooler full of beer. And finally, I've got Liquid driver Matt McKellar checking in. He says that he's just going to be sweltering in his truck and praying to the Opti-Idle gods that they will allow the system to keep the AC running. And he will also be simultaneously contemplating life choices while saying those prayers. And you know what? I'm going to throw a prayer up to the Opti-Idle gods as well for you, Matt, because not having air conditioning in a truck cab is a serious thing, something you want to get fixed right away in this type of heat. You know, they say don't leave your pets in the truck cab when the AC's not running. Yeah, well, don't leave your drivers in there either. That sounds like a real good way to sweat out all the energy you've got. And we need you drivers at the top of your game. So stay cool out there. Again, thank you to all these drivers, Tim Barron Spencer, Austin McCracken, Tracy Zell, Mitch Donaldson, William Stanfield, Mike Stanfield, Corey Lyles, Tony Brown, Polar Bear, Matt Cleach and Matt McKellar. Appreciate all the responses. You know, I say this all the time. You guys are what makes this show great. We wouldn't have got to know how you guys are beating the heat out there and hear the jokes that come along the way. So I really appreciate the communication. And before I wrap this episode up, I'll say again, look for the text that'll come out about driver feedback, because we've got our driver feedback episode coming up, and we're going to answer some of your questions with the powers that be on that episode. So really looking forward to it. That's going to put a bow on this one, Liquid. We appreciate all of the help, all of the contributions that you drivers made today. And of course, another hats off to John Lohan for coming on the podcast for the first time. It was a great interview with him talking about the family and all the fun stuff that they're getting into as the summer rolls on. You guys be safe out there. Keep the shiny side up. Stay cool. Take a page out of Polar Bear's book. Stay hydrated and get on those electrolytes. And we will see you next week for episode 36 of the Liquid Trucking Podcast. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in and being the gold standard of drivers on the road. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel and tune in next week for another episode of the Liquid Trucking Podcast.